of Chicks and Men, written and read by Benjamin Vassell. Author's note. You can find a written version of this story, if you'd like to read along, as well as spicier 18+ audio and written versions of this story at gayscifistories.substack.com. Link in the description field. Thank you in advance for listening and enjoy. I wiped the condensation from the bathroom mirror with the corner of my towel, and a hazy version of myself looked back at me. He had the same ashy brown curls, water darkened and haphazard over his forehead. He had the same pale skin, pink from the warm water. He had the same dark eyes, the same pink lips, the same overly round stomach, the inevitable result of too many takeaways and nights at the pub. I tried to suck the bulbous mass of it in, and the hazy facsimile did the same. It was no good. I turned away from my reflection and headed back to my room. It was safe there. There were no mirrors. The bathroom was en suite, so I needn't worry about wrapping my towel around myself or bumping naked into Mum or Dad. 32 and living back at home. It hadn't been part of the plan. But what had ever happened in my life that had gone to plan? I pulled on a pair of boxers, a pair of gym shorts, and a plain cotton top. It was Saturday morning in mid-July, and I had just come up with a new plan. A simple one. I was going to lose 10 kilos by the end of the year. I was going to get the flat stomach of my pre-Stephen days, and I was going to start today. There were only 3 steps to my plan. Don't eat carbs, go for a walk once a day, and most importantly, avoid the pub at all costs. Mum was in the kitchen, wiping down the counters, even though the cleaner had only done it yesterday afternoon, and no one ever really used the kitchen anyway. "Morning, darling. You off out somewhere?" "I'm going for a walk," I declared, moving over to the synthesizer. "Soda water and 3 slices of lime," I ordered, and the drink and glass and all materialized in its cavity. "Well, it's a lovely day for it. Make sure to put some sun cream on before you go," she advised as I sipped on the effervescent water. I rolled my eyes, but she was right. I'd be boiled lobster red if I didn't. "SPF mist," I ordered from the machine again. A small aluminium bottle with a spray top appeared on the bed of the machine. I started with my face, closing my eyes and pressing the spray top. Then I moved to apply the mist to my neck, my arms, my legs. I watched as the tiny silver particles found my skin and bonded with it. I finished my water, promised my mum to be back in time for lunch. I want salad with mine, no carbs remember, and headed out the front door. My parents lived in a large house on the edge of town which sat near the top of Derwent Hill. From the porch you could see the sky-rise buildings of Buckton to the east and the rolling green fields of the Surrey Hills to the west. The grounds of the estate were lush and manicured and sloped downwards for about half a kilometre. I'd never actually walked down the driveway before, and when I got to the gate, I turned west into the hills, deciding, rather naturally, that I'd prefer the peace of the countryside to the hub of town. The day was astonishingly beautiful, the sky forget-me-not blue, with barely a scattering of fluffy clouds. The grass and leaves of the trees were cheerfully verdant, oak and sycamore and beech. I felt strangely positive and indomitably determined. I passed this way and that way. I wasn't too bothered about my route. I was just going where my instinct took me. I could always get Cassie to fetch me in the car if I wandered too far or got lost. A pair of great blue dragonflies flew past my ear, one chasing the other. The mating dance, perhaps. I turned onto a gravel road. A row of quaint red brick houses lined one side. They must have been hundreds of years old. A large hand-painted sign had been nailed to the gatepost of the one at the end. "Eggs," it read, in neat red letters. And there, underneath the sign, a little roof stool with 5 egg boxes and a credit chip reader. Another sign next to the eggs, in the same painted red print, read, 5 credits. I looked at the boxes. I picked one up and looked at the eggs. I didn't really like eggs, and definitely had never seen one inside the shell before, although, of course, I knew birds laid eggs. I'd seen pictures in textbooks and children's books before that. These particular eggs were brown and unremarkable. Eggs had been on the list of high-protein foods that I had perused that morning. Cutting out carbs meant I needed high-protein food, and eggs had been top of the list. I considered them for just a moment longer. I shrugged and pressed my wrist to the scanner. The credit chip queried the amount I wanted to pay. I tapped out 5 credits on the number pad that tattooed itself in luminous white lines on the back of my hand and clicked pay. The credit reader pinged happily. The lines faded back to pale skin, and I went on my way, egg box in hand. What on the God's green earth is that? My mum was looking at the egg box I was placing on her scoured marble worktop. She looked like I had just run over her dog. It's a box of eggs, I replied simply. Eggs? She exclaimed, horrified, scandalized. Where did you get them? Outside. Outside? It was almost a shriek. From a stall outside someone's house. She looked at me more horrified. You're being a bit dramatic, aren't you? Do you know where eggs come from? I do, I intoned. I thought you didn't like eggs. I'm making a change. How are you even going to cook them? She had me stumped there. What was there other than machines in a modern kitchen? The synthesizer, the recycler. We had a coffee maker because Dad was particular about his coffee, but no oven, no pots, no pans, not even a fork. I whipped out my slate and asked Cassie how to make eggs. What kind of eggs? Came the soft voice of the AI from the device. Scrambled? Fried? Boiled? Poached? Fried, I replied. I never really liked eggs, but frying food tended to help with the flavour. You'll need a stainless steel frying pan and some vegetable oil or butter. First, put the oil or butter into the pan. Wait. I stopped her. Went over to the synthesizer and ordered vegetable oil, butter, and a stainless steel pan from it. Wait, I stopped her. Went over to the synthesizer and ordered vegetable oil, butter, and a stainless steel pan from it. The largest size pan that could materialize in the bed of the machine had a head about the size of my palm, just about big enough to fry an egg, I'd say. You still have no source of heat, my ever-pragmatic mother pointed out. I contemplated this for a moment and then whipped out my slate. The induction plate arrived 2 hours later by drone delivery. It was a square device about 30 centimetres across and half a centimetre thick, layers of aluminium and glass. It was connected to the wireless energy output of the house even before I unboxed it. White lines of a little navigation screen lighting up towards the bottom of it. I placed it on the worktop and asked Cassie to resume her instructions. Set the hob to 180 degrees Celsius and set the pan over it. I followed her instructions as she spoke. Add the oil, butter, or both to the stainless steel pan and wait till the oil just starts to shimmer. I paused the instructions and waited. Does that look like it's shimmering to you? I asked my mum, who was sitting at the dining table with her slate. She looked at me with a small frown. Oh no, I'm not getting involved in any of this egg nonsense, she gave. I shook my head slightly to myself and decided on my own that the oil was in fact shimmering. Tap the shell of the egg lightly against the pan or with a knife to break it and add the contents of the egg to the pan. The liquid centre sizzled and spat as it hit the hot oil. I quickly synthesized the lid and placed it over the pan, and then, 2 to 3 minutes, one frantic internet search later, and another request to the synthesizer for a spatula, I removed the eggs from the pan to a plate. By the gods, I exclaimed to myself as I took the first delicate, crispy, fatty bite. Mum, you've got to try these. They aren't like any eggs I've ever had before. Not a chance. Do you know where eggs come from? Do you know the kinds of bacteria that could be inside those things? I smirked at her and tucked into the rest of my egg. Shakshuka, Spanish tortilla, sukiyaki. Every Saturday, I'd walk by the quirky early millennium brick building and pick up a 6-pack of eggs and make something from the long list of egg dishes I had compiled. The walks and the diet were working, at least according to my bathroom scales. By mid-July, I had lost 2 kilos already. My mum still looked at me as if I were defiling her kitchen every time I ordered a new piece of cooking equipment, and my dad hardly wanted to get involved with the actual cooking, but he was enjoying the fruits of my labours. We'd had Spanish tortilla twice already, one with bacon, cheese and leeks, and one with broccoli, feta and sun-dried tomatoes. That particular Saturday was the hottest day of the year thus far. I would have been topless if I'd had the confidence, but I settled on a loose black tank top, my shortest pair of shorts, and a healthy dose of SPF mist everywhere else. Every time I walked the Saturday route, I noticed something different, like the fact that the little row of houses were not actually in Buckton, but in the adjacent village of Gooseland. There was a sign along the road when you entered the village that I had missed the first time round. Or the fact that the name of the house that the egg stall stood outside of was Gillyflower House. That particular Saturday, the egg stall was empty. No boxes, no credit reader. I frowned at it. "Hey, can I help you?" I whipped my head towards the voice, my heart in my throat and the 7 lives scared out of me at the unexpectedness of it. There was a man in the garden. He was looking at me from where he was bent over by a cluster of foxgloves, a big floppy straw hat obscuring his features. "I'm just here for eggs," I blurted out before my mind could really register my mouth was saying anything at all. He stood up from his crouched position, took off his floppy hat, and ran the back of his palm across his forehead, mussing his already mussed hair further. It was short and dark and not fashionable at all. His skin was a golden olive. The tank top he wore showed off his muscular arms, harsh tan lines at the bulge of each bicep where he clearly spent a lot of time in the sun in a short-sleeved shirt. His eyes were strangely blue for his darker complexion. They would have been better suited to my face, and mine to his, I thought for a stupid second. As he came over to me, I could tell he was at least 10 centimetres taller than me, maybe more. "Sorry, Miss Higgins took the last box about 10 minutes ago," he consoled. "Oh, I see. She came a little early this morning because she'd said I'd been out the last few times she had stopped by," he continued, and then he looked at me contemplatively. "J.S. Grant?" The undignified sound came out of my slack mouth. Was this guy a stalker? It wouldn't be the first time I'd had to deal with one. "You're the new guy, right? J.S. Grant. The name has been showing up on my credit statement every Saturday for the last couple of months." "Oh, right. Yeah, that's me." "Well, thank you for your custom," he said jovially with a slight bow to his head. "No problem," I returned with my own slightly charmed smile. "I love your eggs, man." "Thanks. So much better than the ones from the synthesizer." "Of course they are," he shook his head, suddenly appalled. "People are so lazy. They just want convenience. They forget what real food tastes like." "Right," I say, neither agreeing or disagreeing with him. "Look, I might be out of eggs, but perhaps there is something else I can offer you." He motions for me to come into the garden. I blushed hard, suddenly thinking this was leading to the most bizarre shag of my life, and when he leads me around to the back of his property to show me a patch of neatly trained tomato plants, I blush harder still in private embarrassment at my invariably licentious thought processes. He picked a small orange tomato from the vine of one of the plants. "This," he said with a touch of awe to his voice, "is a sun-gold cherry tomato." He held it out to me and I took it with tentative fingers. He looked at me expectantly and I popped it into my mouth. Sweet, tangy juice burst over my tongue, a flavour like nothing I've ever tasted before. "That's amazing," my voice came out incredulous. "Why don't you sell these too?" "Ah, well, I always have too many eggs, but I never have enough of these. But I think I'll make an exception this one time," he winked at me, "if you'd like some." "Yes, thank you. I'll just go get something to put them in." He disappeared through a sage-green barn door set into the terracotta-coloured brickwork at the back of the house, a pleasing colour combination, and emerged a moment later with a plastic box and lid in hand. "I haven't seen you around the village before," he commented as he picked a few tomatoes from each plant and placed them into the box. "I'm in Buckton. I just moved back recently." "Ah, right," he continued picking. "And you?" "I moved here about 3 years ago. I used to live in London. I was an asset manager. Used to live in a tiny one-bed apartment. That life just didn't agree with me after a while." "Yeah, I get that," I said, and I really did. "What do you do now, then?" "I still have a few clients. I work remotely now, and I run a yoga class in the village hall twice a week." "Yeah?" I said with surprise. "You should come along." "I've never done yoga before." "Don't worry, it's just a bunch of gossipy old ladies, nothing too intense." "And you think I'd fit in with that crowd?" I asked, injecting incredulousness into my tone. He looked at me, face suddenly worried. I grinned at him to show I was joking, and he grinned back. I'll think about it, I said. Here, he said, fishing his slate out of his pocket. Put your contact string in there, and I'll send you the details. I tapped out my name and contact string and handed him back the slate. The box was full now, a veritable rainbow of fruit. He popped the lid on and passed it to me. How much? I asked. Free of charge, he said. And from now on, I'll keep a box of eggs at the porch, so you won't have to go about. I'll hide them under the bench there. You don't have to. I know, but I'm a people pleaser. What can I say? I laughed and thanked him, and we walked back round to the front garden, me first and him behind, retracing our footsteps. Well, I hope to see you around soon, J.S. Grant, the man said, with the brightest and most genuine smile I'd seen in years. Jason, I said, grinning back. Gabriel, he returned. Yoga, 10 to 11, Thursdays and Sundays at Gooseland Village Hall. This is Gabriel, by the way, XX. The village hall smelled of what all village halls have smelt like since time immemorial, dust and mildew and antique wooden things. There were a dozen or so people milling about, chatting happily and rolling out yoga mats on the wooden floor. All women, all in their hundreds. Gabriel himself was talking to a Giblish woman at the front of the room, her two front tentacles waving around in emphasis at whatever she was saying. I felt too abashed to enter the room properly, but he caught me lurking in the entranceway, made an excuse to the woman and came over to me. I'm so glad you made it. He was wearing tracky bottoms and a vibrant yellow tank top with bright pink lettering that read, I'm bendy and single, on it. I've set you out a mat at the front of the class. He guided me over to said mat. We're going to be working on our hips today. You don't have any injuries I should know about, do you? I shook my head. Okay then. Just try to follow along with me, but listen to your own body. It knows its own limits. And then to the whole class, everyone, settle down, please. Gabriel settled onto his mat, legs crossed and wrists gently resting on his knees. I and the rest of the group mimicked him. Before I start our session today, I just wanted to introduce a newcomer to the class. Everyone, this is Jason. Please go easy on him. Where's the fun in that? One of the women called, and the rest of the class laughed. Was pushing him at the front of the class for his benefit or ours? Another called. Enough, ladies, Gabriel chided and winked at me. I blushed fiercely. Now, let's start by moving our heads slowly from left to right. A little way into the class, when we were moving into some more complicated shapes, Gabriel came over to me and said in a low voice, Do you mind if I touch you? What? I replied, a little stunned. He chuckled. To adjust your positioning, he clarified. No, yeah, that's fine, I blubbered out. Bend your knees a little. Yeah, like that. He placed his hand on my hips and pulled them up, and then pressed his palm between my shoulder blades and pushed gently until he was happy. His hands were large and warm, and I really didn't mind him touching me at all. After class, Gabriel invited me to the pub for a chinwag, his words, with him and the rest of the ladies. I'd said yes before I remembered I wasn't drinking. Luckily no one else was either. Some ordered smoothies, some coffee. Gabriel asked me what I would like, so I asked for my usual soda water with 3 slices of lime. He came back with a pint of sparkling water for me and a Coke for himself. The ladies were cheeky and sweet in equal measure, and at least half of them had made some kind of innuendo referring to the view of my arse not 5 minutes into the conversation. But in ones or twos they left, having other errands and family members to attend to, and soon it was just me and Gabriel left. He came back from the bar with another round of drinks. He had that almost ever-present grin on his face. I'm glad you came to yoga today. I hope the ladies didn't scare you off from coming back next week. They are a bit wild, I agreed, but I enjoyed myself, so I think I'll be coming back next week. I was curious though, what does the Giblish woman get up to in the class anyway? Belinda? Yeah, I thought they didn't have any bones. Well, she just sort of ties herself into knots and then unties herself. But the yoga class isn't just about yoga, it's about social gathering for these ladies. Helps them to get out of the house. I see. It's very wholesome, I settled on. Although the class isn't as wholesome as one might expect. He shrugged with a smirk. Your tank top, for instance, I pointed out. A gift from the ladies, he clarified. Is it true? Are you bendy and single? I am, he confirmed. Good to know. I took a sip of my drink and he did the same. You know, I've been very rude and I don't think I've ever asked you what you do, Gabriel said. I'm sort of between jobs right now, but I was a junior research botanist at Kew Gardens before I left London. Oh, wow, you're a plant guy. What do you specialise in? Gene splicing for extraterrestrial adaptation. Well, that sounds very impressive. How did you get into that? Well, it was a bit of a compromise, to be honest. My dad wanted me to follow into his field. He works in embryonic gene manipulation. I wanted to be a botanist, so I landed somewhere in between. There was a pause while Gabriel considered something. Are you a designer baby, Jason? I felt heat rising to my cheeks. I am, I admitted. I knew it. You did? He closed one eye and held his hand out, palm facing me, and considered me for a moment. Then he moved his hand slightly to the right and then looked at me with his other eye closed. Yeah, you're a little too symmetrical to be natural, he concluded, but he had a smile on his face, so it must have been a compliment. I looked down to my sparkling water for a second, rubbed a finger through the condensation that had formed there. And it's not a problem for you, me being gene spliced? I asked, looking back to the man. No, I'm not one of those third head fanatics or anything like that. Well, that's a relief. The next Saturday I was just picking up my box of eggs from the front porch, exactly where Gabriel said they would be, when he once again scared the 7 lives out of me by peeking his head out through the front door. He had the biggest smile on his face. Hey, I have something to show you, he said. What? I asked, trying to calm my accelerated heart rate. Come in. I only hesitated a moment before complying. His home was cosy, minimalist, traditional. The items of furniture he did have were simple and wooden. The walls were a soft, warm white. He led me down a hallway and into what might have been the living room, except the furniture was pushed to the perimeter and a large run had been erected in the centre. Jeep, jeep, jeep. The room was filled with the cries of half a dozen or so balls of feathery fluff. Chicks! I cried. Chicks indeed, he confirmed. I lost a hen about a month ago. Thought a fox had got her, but then she came back yesterday with 7 little ones. I have no idea where she hatched them. He chuckled, and the sound warned me like whiskey on a cold night. Would you like to hold one? Oh, yeah, sure. He stepped into the run, which was easy enough as it was only about a metre high, and I did the same, at his beckoning motion. He told me to sit, so I did, cross-legged, and then he scooped up one of the tiny birds, showed me how to hold it, and placed it into my hands. I held it like it was the most fragile piece of fine glass art, and petted its tiny soft head with my thumb. Gabriel was looking at us like the proudest dad in the universe. The grin hadn't fallen from his face once. What? I couldn't help the way the word bubbled out of my chest like gentle laughter. I'm just trying to decide who's cuter, the chick or you. By the gods, did that just come out of my mouth? He looked scandalised a moment, and then his face resolved back into a large grin. Nope, I'm just going to own it. I was blushing fiercely. It was becoming a habit around this man, and my response slipped out of my mouth without permission. Well, I think you're stunning. My cheeks flamed harder than they must have ever done before. In my embarrassment, my grip released and the chick escaped from my hand. I watched as he scuttled back to his brothers and sisters. When I looked back to Gabriel, he was still looking at me. What? I asked. You think I'm stunning? I couldn't tell if he was teasing me or not. My face must have been the same terracotta as the bricks of the house. Yes, I admitted. Would you mind if I kissed you? I took a moment to judge his expression. The request seemed genuine, so I said, in an almost whisper, no. He placed a hand on my knee, his smile broadening ever so slightly, and then he pressed his lips to mine. I thought the kiss would be chaste. In fact, I didn't know what I was thinking. How was this even happening? How did I get to this point? I'd only come for eggs. His broad tongue lapped at my top lip, asking permission. I granted it, opening my own lips, and then I stopped thinking altogether. Our tongues slipped over one another, our breaths mingled. My hand slipped around his shoulders and his fingers found their way into my curls. He pulled away then. Sorry, he said, somewhat abashedly. I haven't kissed a bloke in a while. I got a bit carried away. No, don't be sorry, I insisted, and then leaned in to kiss him again. I liked the feeling of his fingers in my hair, the way he smelled like freshly turned soil and mint. When we pulled apart the second time, he said in a very low voice, "Do you want to take this to the bedroom?" I nodded eagerly. He took my hand in his and pulled me to my feet. He led me over to the edge of the run, up the stairs and into the immaculately kept double bedroom. We were stood at the foot of his bed, his hands on my waist, me looking up into his August sky blue eyes. I thought he was going to kiss me again, but then he pushed me to the bed. We were both spent, panting, revelling in the beautifully licentious act we had just committed. "I shouldn't have done that," Gabriel said before pressing his lips to mine, a gentle kiss. "Oh, you definitely should have." He pulled away. "I got a bit carried away. I should have asked you out on a date first." "Yeah, I guess," I agreed. "But what about the pub after yoga last Sunday?" "Was that a date?" "Well, towards the end it was kind of like a date. 2 people chatting with drinks." "It does kind of sound like a date. I guess it must have been then. I was going to make it up to you, but I guess I don't have to now." He was grinning, leaning on one elbow, looking at me. "Ah, well now, you see, we were all sweaty and gross from yoga, so I guess it can't have been a date. So you are going to have to make it up to me after all." "You cheeky sod," he said with laughter on his breath. "I think I'm going to have to punish you for such cheeky behaviour." "Punish me?" I exclaimed, mock alarm in my voice. "Yes, I think a good tickling should put you in your place." "No," I begged. "No, no!" He pounced. Epilogue. I was laid out on Gabriel's bed. I had lost my button down somehow, and he was pressing kisses to the flat planes of my stomach. "I'm so proud of you," he was saying between kisses. "Look at these beautiful little abs starting to peek through." I was blushing. I still sometimes found it difficult to take compliments from him. "I am going to miss the stomach, though," he said with disappointment in his tone. I pushed him off me and laughed as he rolled onto his back. "Come on, we're going to be late for my parents' winter solstice party," I said, and then kissed his still laughing mouth just because I could.